All right, let's go ahead and get started since everybody here who showed up on time. And again, this is Joe Kenn for Dynamic Discussions and Dynamic Fitness and Strength. On behalf of our owners, Kurt and Tammy Tambernino, my big time producer, James Peters, and the rest of the staff, we thank you. The topic this month is my presentation at the CSCCa on lessons of a veteran strength coach. I was very, very happy and overly pleased with the feedback I got, especially from my peers and from some of the younger strength coaches of the generations below me or behind me, so to speak. I thought it was well received. I did throw some talk about in small groups that people are generally afraid to speak out in the public eye. But like I told the audience, I've been doing this for 32 years. I've earned the right to say whatever I want. And I did. And I was well received. So it's all good. So let's start off with some of the questions that are not related to the topic today, because I want to always try to address what you guys send us. One question was, how can I get a pink dynamic sweat top? Well, here's what I'll tell you. You might be able to get one, but you won't be able to wear it like your guy wears it. So it's not about can you get a pink top, it's how well you can wear that pink top. And I don't think anybody can wear it better than me. So we'll start off with a little humor right off the bat. Second, this one, again, this will lead to part of the discussion tonight, is I got two questions from a strength coach on force plate training. And I will be the first one to tell you, I have never used a force plate in any of my training situations. Not even in the NFL. We were thinking about it a couple of times and we never really pulled the trigger. So when you don't know something and someone asks you a question, that whole quote of fake it till you make it, you can't do that in what we do, because if someone finds out you faked it, you're never going to make it and you lose all credibility. So I will tell you, like I tell everybody else, you can only be an expert in so many things. And because I'm not an expert in force plate work, I had to reach out to one of my go-to coaches. So I spoke with Brandon Marcello a little bit today on force plate work. And based off the questions, they're probably simpler than I thought. But the first question was, for jumping sports like volleyball and basketball, how frequently do you think you should put athletes on a force plate in season to spot meaningful trends? I've heard everywhere from daily to weekly to monthly. And the truth is, it's very simple. What else do you measure and how do you measure that? If you're going to test some type of upper body strength component and you're going to do that once a month, then you probably only need to go on once a month on a force plate to see what the differences are. If you're doing things weekly, then it's obviously weekly. So if you're using different metrics during the season to evaluate progress or high levels of retention, and you think the force plate has some applicable numbers and data that you want to see, then I think it just fits in and outside of the force plate. So if you're going to evaluate some type of lower body power once a month, then you should do force plates once a month. If you're doing it once a week, then you should do it once a week. So I think that question is fairly simple. The second one was tougher, because this is where you really need to understand what a force plate does. And again, I'm not there yet. Most of you younger strength coaches probably have far more experience with force plates than I do. Some athletes are more elastic and some more contractile. What metrics on a force plate, if any, will tell you whether an athlete is one or another? Again, talking with Brandon, what metrics are you looking for? And we use the example of a 40-yard dash. If you have two people who run a 40-yard dash and one runs a 4.6 and one runs a 5 flat, but yet they're 10 yards what do you find out about these athletes? Well, the one who runs a 4.6 is probably more elastic and doesn't have very good starting strength. And then the one who runs a 5 flat probably has very good starting strength, but then doesn't have the capabilities to run max velocity faster. So again, force plates, you're going to have to do a lot more research and coming to me and reach out to some other people. Again, the more you evaluate, the more time it takes to enhance your programming. I mean, I heard Matt Ray say on a post the other week that for every hour of training that they do in the weight room, it takes those guys 3 hours to review all the data collection. That's a huge investment, and they're 100% all in on that. I can't speak for, the value of that. Obviously, it's working for them, and they've been successful at 2 universities implementing that system. But those are the things you got to ask. How much value is the force plate? The only practicality I've ever discussed with anybody about force plates really has been on lower leg deficiencies from one leg to the other, and then how would you train that to enhance the capabilities to at least bring those ratios closer to even. I don't think anybody's ever going to be 100% even on any of their limbs, especially in the world of athletics and compensation issues based off of the different movements. But a good question to start, challenge me. Maybe I need to do a little bit more work on figuring out how people use force plates. Okay, with that, we have the next question. Can you please go in depth on the block zero progression for? I can go for hours in depth. I mean, I don't think this is the platform for that. I will tell you, block zero is a very fluid and moldable program based off of where you are and who you are. I will say that I'm a big believer in gymnastic strength and body weight movements implemented early in the programming before any external load is. I just believe that. I believe that you should teach somebody to do a push-up, where I've heard Mike Boyle believes it's okay to use dumbbells because those loads are lighter than the body weight of a push-up. And that's a good way you can train people. I would prefer to use an elevated method of push-ups so that the athlete learns how to control their body weight and learns how to apply force into their hands, into the ground. Tomato, right? I think there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, and everybody's going to have their progressions. Me in particular, watching the success I've had with younger athletes without touching a weight, I'm going to lean more towards body weight and gymnastics work and gradually bring in external loads. So that would be my thought process going in. Now, I will say that the plan had always been, when you're talking about high school level athletes, is to get the second semester 8th grader into the body weight or movement work early in that semester. So when they go into that high school summer program and you may expose them to external loads, that they at least have the confidence to know they could handle a barbell in their hands or a set of dumbbells or in this day and age, a kettlebell for goblet squat work, which is a great layering program into building into the front squat and the back squat. But as far as block zero goes in depth, that's a 3-day seminar. So I think that's something that should be very specifically brought up at another time, as we've had several different people ask many different questions, and we don't really want to get off topic. So I hope that gives you at least a framework to dive deeper into all the different variations of block zero that are going out there. And some high school programs are just killing that method and have used the block zero concept in a very positive way to lifting at the high school level at some of those schools who have implemented a body weight progression into external loading. Coach Kenn, what are your thoughts on an off-season unified strength and conditioning program for high school athletes, 24 varsity boys and girls? Well, training's training. Most strength power sports, you're going to have very similar movements. I think at that age bracket, though, there are some things physiologically as between male and female, but I think you're going to train athletes for power at that point in time. If they've come through a quality block zero program, they should be prepared to do, some type of squatting movement, whether it be a back squat or front squat, your choice. By then, I think they should be progressed if they're varsity athletes. Some type of hinge, what that is it a deadlift? Is it a traditional deadlift? Is it a sumo deadlift? Is it a trap bar deadlift? Again, that's the program designer and the coach's choice based off their philosophy and methods and how they're going to get there. Are they going to do overhead barbell pressing? Are they going to do dumbbell pressing? Are they going to do barbell bench press, dumbbell bench press? And then you got to match with the horizontal and vertical pulling components. How much body weight stuff are you going to continue to build with them? Because one thing that you will find about block zero components, we call some of them block zero, but yet even at the highest level of elite sport, there's still athletes who have a hard time doing a pistol squat, still can't do Nordic leg curls. So block zero never goes away. Like relative strength training and gymnastic strength never should leave your program. I don't care how old you are. You should always be figuring out a way to put chin-ups and pull-ups in an athletic-based strength training program. You're going to do some type of variations of a pistol squat or a single leg squat movements for all athletes, whether it be a touchdown progression, eccentric pistol squat to a bench, concentric only pistol squat off of a bench, which is a very good teaching plan, not only for block zero, but even for people at high levels who may have single limb discrepancies in strength where that force plate may come into play. So I think if an athlete is classified a strength power athlete at that level, regardless, male or female, they should be doing similar patterns throughout. If you believe in Olympic lifts, you're going to do some type of clean progression or a snatch progression. The teaching patterns are the same, but you have to be aware. Again, there's certain things that female athletes have physiologically different than male athletes at that age, also as with growth and maturity. A lot of times, and that time they start even out, but a lot of times female athletes in that certain age bracket are ahead athletically than male athletes. That's something to be aware of. So those are things that, again, I don't have an issue with. I love training women athletes. They're better than training male athletes, if you really want to know. They're more competitive to the fact that they want to do it right. They're not worried about chasing numbers or impressing anyone else. And they really believe that point, they really will buy into the concept that one, it will help protect their body armor, and two, it will enhance their capabilities when you combine that with the training that they're getting in their specific sport. Now let's dive into what we talked about at the CSCCa. I was asked to speak at the CSCCa, and I'll be honest with you, at first I didn't want to speak. I felt like I had been spoken out for the most part. I hadn't been a part of the CSCCa in 10 years. I hadn't been to a conference. Being in the NFL, my time and my window were not conducive to being at that clinic. Not that I had lost touch with the college coaches or what was going on, but I just felt like going back in a new role that, you know what, I didn't want to take up the opportunity for someone else to speak who has been doing it standpoint at the college level during these last 10 years. Long story short, I wind up speaking, and then the next thing is, okay, what should I speak on? Well, let's just face it. I'm not going to speak on the tier system every single time I speak. I'm not going to speak on block zero every time I speak, especially in that type of environment with that types of people that are going to be in the crowd. Most of those people have heard it or read it. And I felt like, what can I do that would be slightly different, but bring some awareness to us as a so-called profession? That's right, so-called profession. Because there's a lot of things that we want to say we're professional about, and nothing we show up has anything to do with being professional. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do I started off with 10 life lessons of a strength coach. And I said, well, there's a lot more than 10 as I began writing my notes. And then I spoke to a lot of different people on how to go through some of the points that I was discussing, because some of them were not, I had to be very, very conscious of how I worded some things, because I didn't want to come across like I was going after a certain group or a certain person, but it was just the general concepts of what I've seen over time and how we're perceived by others on the outside looking in. Because that's the truth of the matter, is regardless of how great we do our jobs, the perception of what we are is nothing about what we do. When we see ourselves on highlights of ESPN, it's never things that we're asked to do or told to do that have nothing to do with our roles. Keep a coach back, be the get back coach, right? In football, or you got to be the rah-rah, you got to be the hype guy. And I understand more now as you watch from an evolution of athletes. Athletes in this era are big on external motivation. And that's why it's important that, I guess it's important that, especially in the sport of football and college, there's a hype guy. There's the guy who supposedly brings the juice. But my question is it juice or is it fake juice? Because there's a difference. It's a personality trait. Fake juice, as we know, is artificial flavoring. Lots of high fructose corn syrup. It's not sustainable. You get that quick energy fix and then you crash. Juice, natural fruit juice, there's something sustainable to it. It's got the types of vitamin and minerals that you need for a longer lasting authenticity. And then what I said is, in the end, when you have carried on, and juice is about personality. Not everybody's going to have an upbeat, rah-rah, just a natural belief in the hype of being excited to be there every single day. We all know that's hard. It's hard. But with the fake juice, you usually crash. You've gone all out for that one session, and now you're in the back, just worn out, but in 10 minutes, you got to do it again. Can you do that multiple times? Guys with real juice can do that because it's built into their DNA. And that's what I said. The long-term people who have juice really have what I call sauce. And that's natural ingredients simmered over a long period of time. So it wasn't about throwing anybody under the bus. It was about, hey, we're being told what to do by people who really don't know what we're supposed to do. And again, isn't it laughable about, let's talk about like the get back coach. Isn't it laughable that you have to discipline somebody who for the other 6 days a week yells at players about being very, stand behind the line, right? If you're not behind the line running sprints, you're going to do 20 up downs. Well, shouldn't that coach do 20 up downs when he's running out on the field screaming and could get a 15-yard penalty? To me, that's hypocritical. And I've always said that, even when I was still coaching. And when it's the most important time to be disciplined, you're not. And then that guy who's assigned to you getting pulled back, and then you're slapping him. How many times have you seen that coach like slapping the guy away like he's a dog? That's not right. And yet now that's how we're being perceived on specials on national TV sports networks. And then that's the strength coach. That's the rah-rah guy, right? That's the dude with the cutoff shirts. But is it that guy, or how good a coach are they? Like, we don't know these guys, how well a coach they are. To me, that's something that I don't know how you fix that. That's probably the problem I have, is I don't know how to fix it. I've been told, I've had guys on my team in the NFL, how should the best get back coach in the world? No, I stand in the corner and never move. You know why I'm the best get back coach in the world? Because my guys respect me and they know the rules. And if you really notice, it's not the players very rarely, unless something huge, excited goes down. It's generally a coach. How many of you have worked the sidelines? Don't you find it amazing that a coach will tell you he has to stay up all night and sleep in the office to watch tape? They meet how many times with their players and practice 4 times a week, getting them assignments and alignments. And then in the middle of the game, they're running out on the field because the guy's lined up wrong. Does that make any sense to anybody? What have you done all week? I thought that's why you guys that's why you guys sleep in the office. I mean, where's the preparation? And again, I don't know. I might get a job tomorrow in the NFL. Maybe I don't. But I've said this stuff out loud anyway. Now I'm just making sure that all the coaches that see and think the same things hear it from somebody who is willing to say it. And if there was one thing that I learned from talking to a lot of the vets was, man, that's a lot to be said, and you're probably the right guy to say it out loud. So I got big enough shoulders to put that on me because I believe in what we do and we're not getting the credit for what we do. If that makes sense. We can't keep talking about guys are great coaches if we've never watched them coach. Guys can present, guys can be on social media all they want. But until you watch them coach on the floor, presentations where we've seen coaches present and we'll go, that was okay. And then visit them and like, oh, that dude can flat out coach, to a point where, because in our world of perception, everybody wants to evaluate people on how they present. Well, that guy's a great presenter, but he's never in the office. He's always in his office. He's never coaching. So what is he presenting on? It's funny how that is, man. That's what we used to call it, clinic talk. Guys would talk one thing, you'd go watch and they're doing a totally different other. The best way you will find out how people can coach is go watch them coach. Believe me, in our small fraternity of strength coaches, unless there's rules, again, placed on us by someone else, I don't know of any coach that wouldn't allow you to come and observe workouts. Now, I can tell you in the NFL, we had specific times where our general manager and during the season, nor would I want you to be in during the season. But during what we consider the off season or the off season, we had coaches. We were very fortunate at the Panthers that we had a very open door when it came to coaching. And that stemmed from the general managers and Coach Rivera. But those are the things that we've got to be consciously aware of as strength coaches. We're losing our voice. Too many people are telling other people what our jobs are, and then they're getting the decisions to pick who gets our positions. And that's tough. And if you're outspoken and opinionated, whether you're good, bad, or indifferent, it's not conducive to you probably landing a job. And if you intimidate somebody because you are very confident in your opinions and you've proven things over time, it's not conducive to you landing a job when sport coaches want to run the show. No matter how much they go, you're the weight coach, do what you need to do. We all know at some point in time, they want to throw a curveball and test where you stand. And that's tough. I mean, there's some guys I see who's on this call. So you know what I'm talking about. And there's a truth to that. And there's a lot of reasons why you see a lot of turnover. You see a lot of people joining running on these trains, right? Hey, this is my guy. I'm rolling with this guy until I can't roll with him anymore. And then you got to hope your network allows you to establish yourself and be able to land another job when that used to talk about, well, you're not really a coach till you're fired. Let me just tell you, whoever came up with that, that's a crock. You don't want to be fired. That's not fun. That's not a rite of passage. You don't get a gold star on your jacket because you got fired. But you better be prepared for it, because if you're not, it will knock you down. If you're not mentally prepared for being let go, the time it hits you, you will get knocked down a bit. You have to be resilient enough to know it could occur, regardless of the job you do. And especially in this era of the sport-specific strength coach, you signed up for winning in team sports. If you are a one-sport strength and conditioning coach, you're a staff member. Stop it. You're on the staff. You signed up for it. The team doesn't win, you get fired. Don't say you did your job because you had 42 guys bench 400. Well, you probably should have spent your time on something else because you were 2-9 and you got fired. Because you can't think that your job's any different than any of those position coaches. So you go 2-9, but your running back rushed for 1,500 yards and your offensive line coach had 2 all-conference performers. Should he have gotten fired? Because I would tell you that guy did his job. 2 all-conference guys and a 1,500-pound rusher? That guy did his job. So why is he getting fired? Because he signed up for winning and losing. You work with team sports. I don't care if you work with 6 team sports and you're an Olympic-based strength coach. You sign up to work in the college, high school, professional setting. You signed up for winning. People don't want to hear that. Oh, well, we did our job. Did you? Did you? We could all say we did our job. I mean, it's very, very tough. And we have to find our identity. We have lost our voice. We lack unification. And we're our own worst enemy. Smack on other strength coaches. Yet other groups that we work with do a better job of not doing that and are more unified. They have a quality voice. They understand more than just keeping the head down and grinding it out, which I don't coach speak, another word that makes no sense to me. But we're our own worst enemy. And we've got to be, we don't. That's because we haven't done a good enough job of promoting what we do and how we do it to the right people. We've stayed in the background while other people in similar roles have a more open relationship and open discussions with people at the higher organizational management, whether it be an associate AD, an AD, a provost. They've done a better job than we have. We've got to be aware of that moving forward. It's one of the reasons why guys like Bob Alejo and Pat Ivey are trying to promote and help strength coaches get into those administrative positions in the university level, so that those types of individuals can help educate the other administrators of what a strength coach really does. Because the truth is, most of them don't really know. How many times in your guys' career, or your women, or as a woman, if you're in your career, have you seen an administrator literally come down the weight room and evaluate your capabilities? At Arizona State, Gene Smith was always watching. That's probably the only university. Tom Jurich was there some at Louisville, but Gene Smith was always watching. But think about that. I spent 8 years at one university, 2 years at another, and could never say that. And then the individuals who were supposed to be your direct support, I never saw those people. Unless they went down to work out themselves, which was at the end of the day and we were wrapping it up. So those are things we've got to understand. And that's why when guys or women that have excelled in what we do get those administrative roles, you've got to think bigger picture. Too many strength coaches don't have peripheral and global vision. They're very thought into what we do. We lift weights, we do speed work, we do conditioning, we have a little bit of nutrition, but we're not looking at the things from a global perspective. What do I mean? How would you evaluate yourself if you were an administrator, if you were an associate AD, if you were a general manager, if you were the head coach, if you were the owner of an organization? You have to look at it from their perspective. How do you see that? Are you willing enough to self-critique? And I've talked to Adam about this, Coach Fight, and we've talked about it because now that he has gone in sport and self-critique and having to look in the mirror and see where you failed yourself or failed your staff, that's hard to admit. And I've admitted it. And I admitted it twice on a couple of things we did training-wise last Thursday when I spoke. Are you willing enough to say out loud, whether to a coach, your staff, or to another colleague, that you failed? I know exactly how my 9-year career at the Panthers went. I know exactly things that I've learned through reading when it was time for me to probably leave. I stayed at the Panthers. I will tell that, and I'll tell anybody. When I look at my 9-year tenure at the Panthers, I probably stayed 2 years too long. Because at that point in time, the value of it got stagnant because of one of the things I learned. And I would say this: know your role, manage your expectations. That's something I learned from Coach Rivera. He would talk to the players. Always listen to head coaches talk, because sometimes I think they're talking to us too, and we don't take advantage of some of the things they say. And then everybody has high aspirations. I had high aspirations of what I thought my value was to the program beyond X's and O's of the weight room. The longer you get, you find out more and more about, okay, this is kind of the role that you're going to. Is that enough for you to be successful? It never affects the kids. The X's and O's was easy, but it affected a lot of other things outside the X's and O's with the players. Because I had goals and aspirations of what I felt I had learned over time and what I could give a different perspective to individuals outside of, hey, what's that guy's body weight? Why do you think he's up 5 pounds? And at that point in time, again, I started looking around for other opportunities. But I will also tell you, it's hard to leave the NFL. Whether it's contract-wise and they don't let you out, or are you really willing to give up one of 32 jobs in the whole world? So it's a lot of self-reflection and a lot of growth from my part, knowing that if I'm in an opportunity to mentor or lead an organization from an administrative role where I feel like my time on the floor is over, I'm well prepared for that. Because if you get me in an interview, I have enough confidence in my own vulnerability, because that's going to show the difference of what a true leader is. And this is my opinion, I've not read this in a text, where you can honestly look somebody in the eye and tell them where you failed and be extremely self-critical in your analysis. You do that, I think that just shows your growth as a person. And I think it will show the individuals you talk to that you truly have an understanding of being a leader and would be well capable of handling, overseeing numerous departments and trying to build a synergistic relationship with all those groups. Because let's remember, when this all started, the strength coach was the nutritionist. He was the sports scientist. He was the flexibility coach. He was the psychologist. Now we got department heads for all of them. So you used to have to be multitask. Now it's become extremely specific. And that's why the younger groups, your GAs or your lower, I hate to say lower classified assistants, but however you rank those entry level positions, they have to specialize in something now. Like my son's coming up, he can't just be a meathead weight guy like me. He just can't. He's got to find something that's going to set him apart from the others. And that's where you're seeing people, all right, whatever sports science really means. You know, I mean, like I always tell people, I got a degree in health and sports science in 1988. So does that mean at 1988, I was the first sports scientist in strength and conditioning because I have a degree? I mean, their coach speak is laughable, but that's another story for another time. You know, data, like I talked a bunch about data-driven versus people-based. But the truth is, as strength coaches, when have we not done data? When have you not collected data? The difference is we are in the technology all of a sudden change the game because of the capabilities of what technology has given us has expanded the metrics that can be evaluated to a point where you really can't evaluate all those metrics. So now you need a specific person who is your high sports scientist. You know, and then you got this guy. Oh, this is the high performance coach speak term, high performance. These are things that you learn over 32 years. You watch this evolve. You watch how do you fit? Where's the next step in your journey, depending on where you are in your path of coaching success or significance. I'm past the success part. I've accomplished almost anything you could ever wish for in sports when it comes to being successful. Yeah, would I have loved to have gone to a BC as a football guy towards the end of my college coaching career? Would I have loved to have been playing a BCS game? Of course, that's what you're coaching for, right? If you're in the NFL, I would have loved to have won a Super Bowl. I played in one, we didn't win. The worst thing you can do is go to Super Bowl and not win. When I worked with Boise State women's basketball and we made our first ever NCAA tournament, that's big time, right? That's something you can hang your hat on. When you work with the gymnastics team and they win multiple conference titles, when you work with specific athletes. When we were at Boise State, we had a women's gymnast who the coach allowed to be a part of our powerlifting team. And on one Saturday, she's pulling a 341-pound deadlift at 123 pounds on her last attempt to win a powerlifting national title. And then the next Saturday, she hits a 9.8 on the vault to help the team win a Big West title. Those are cool things. Those are things you can lay your hat on. But then it gets to that point where, okay, where do you really want to go? And it comes to a level of significance. And that's why as you get older, or I shouldn't say as you, or that's why, this is your choice. I think you have to really look deep reflection of yourself and ask yourself, how can you make a significant impact on people? In my case, it's how can I make a significant impact on you, the strength coach, regardless of what era you're in on your climb. And one of it is to open up and show a different part of you that most people don't see. You know, they see big house strutting around like he owns the conference floor, but they don't see the guy who's telling you his vulnerabilities and the fact that he should have left a high-level job because the time had run out, or telling a group of colleagues and coaches that he failed a team because he didn't prepare them correctly, or he was so into his role as a weight coach that he took this group of guys competing on Saturdays. That's on me. I didn't help build culture the wrong way. When the weight room culture is not copacetic with the football culture, it's not going to work. Yeah, we killed it in the weight room, but man, those guys didn't like practice. Something's wrong. You got to help fix that. So I think what you have to understand is as you get to a certain point, and this is from the book Halftime, a lot of this success to significance stuff is from the book Halftime. And that really resonated with me. There was a little Twitter post about books that you should read outside of the X's and O's, and somebody brought up Patrick Lenciani. I've read every Lenciani book, and you should read all of them because they're great. And they're not even just about coaching, they're about life. What is it? 3 Signs of the Frantic Family, or something in that case. Or like I can tell you right now, everybody talks about 5 dysfunctions of a team. Read Death by Meeting. I guarantee you change your whole philosophy on what daily meetings mean. Overrated. No value in meeting to meet. You got to meet to compete. And sometimes that doesn't mean meeting every day, just because people think you have to meet every day. But the one book that really helped me out a couple of times in my career was three Signs of a Miserable Job. And a lot of it, and one of the key components is value. How are you valued by others that have a strong component of how you can be successful or significant in your role? It helped me move from one job to another and helped me learn that it was time for me to really contemplate leaving another job. So there's value in that. After a while, like I know a lot of the people on this thing. After a while, you know how you're going to train somebody. Do you really got to read another book by Verkhoshansky? Is that really going to change the way you're training people? Probably not. I mean, it's just funny how I'm going to read this book. How much is it really going to change what you do? That's why I feel like at this point in my career, when you can get to the point of your career where you can say, I know what I don't care to know, I think you've really established yourself from a philosophical or a methodology standpoint that unless you find that one eureka point, and generally it's not going to come from a book, it's going to come from a presentation of a coach who has adapted a certain principle and has figured out how it works in our environment. If you coach team sports, and I call it peeling the onion with the social media craze, be very aware of who the information is coming from or where the information is coming from. And this is just generalizations, but how many times have most of you who coach a team sport in a university, college, high school, or professional setting hear from people that are only coached in the private sector? And seeing the best thing that I have going for myself is I've coached high school, college, pro, private. Not many can say they've done all 4. So I can say whatever I want because I lived all 4 of them. But how many times do you hear somebody in the private sector say out loud, well, if I was coaching that team, I would do this, this, and this. Would you? You think when you got the time restraints and the other organizational rules and regulations that we have, that you're going to be able to do a 45-minute hurdle mobility prep before every speed session when you only have 45 minutes for the entire day? Yeah, give me a break. I understand what you're saying. Because when I was in the private sector, guess what I was able to do? A pretty extensive prep. Just like, hey, how do you warm teams up for practice? Well, not a whole lot when they only give you 5 minutes. And they hold you to the 5. It's not like you can squeeze it to 6. That whistle's blowing in 5. It's an automatic horn. We got to go. Hell, one year, because of the rules, They made the guys stretch on their own in the locker room because they didn't want to give up that 5 minutes of time because we had to learn the playbook. The strength coach has to be the master of hitting a curveball. Everybody in life has to hit a curve, but when it comes to the coaching world, no one has to hit a curveball better than the strength coach. The most adaptable coaches in the building. That's why I call us the chameleons. Who I have the utmost respect for are the Olympic, in this day and age, are the Olympic strength coaches who handle 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sports, because they're the true chameleons. And they're also the better coach. The things you learn from dealing with multiple coaches' personalities, multiple athletes' personalities from different sports. Just because it's a male sport or a woman's sport, believe me, there's a reason why they play volleyball. There's personality traits that are similar that are different, in those groups. There's a reason why the biggest, strongest guys in your male sports are throwers, yet they don't play football or wrestle. There's just certain personality traits that resonate with different sports. Just like I know as a football player, I don't care what weight class the wrestler is. I'm not fighting a wrestler. I'm not fighting a wrestler. Because I saw live a 118-pound wrestler in 1987 at a frat party in Carolina beat up a 290-pound football player. Because wrestlers are crazy. Football players are football tough. There's some street tough football players, but you don't have to be whack job tough to be a football player. You got to have a little bit of that glassy-eyed look to wrestle. Because it's you against them. And I can tell you that because I wrestled. And I didn't have that glassy-eyed look. I didn't have that real, like I'm just going to dominate fools. I tried to just outclass them on size and strength. But when you see that guy who's got that look, yeah, when it's all equal, you're probably not going to beat that kid. So it teaches you about people. It teaches you about being able to understand the value of what you do. Because we've all had it, right? The kids are good kids, but they take the notion of the head coach. If they know the head coach doesn't like the weight room, guarantee you that team's not going to care as much of the weight room. That's your job to figure out how can you get to flip them that. That's where some of that social psycho aspects of sport come in. Nowadays, in our world, we can go to that specific person now as a strength coach and ask them, can you help me on this issue? 20 years ago, you were the person who had to help yourself. That's how it's evolved. That's how the growth of helping athletes has evolved, and how people have seen that experts at certain things have to be hired because they give you the best chance of success with the athlete than someone being good at 4 different components. I know where I stand in this game. And that's why I know where I want to reach out to when I need help. And I'll say this out loud. When you have your niche and you're good at it, exploit it. When we were in the early 2000s, 2010 and 2009, I have no issue of saying when nutrition really started moving forward, that Adam Feit probably was the best strength coach in terms of nutrition. And he raised the game for a lot of people to get more involved with nutrition. There's no doubt in my mind in that era, no doubt, and probably could walk off the street today and outclass all of us in movement screens and patterning than Brian Dermody. Nobody studied that stuff like that guy did. His screening process, it was laughable when we had the functional movement screen people come in and he had that thing dissected. I mean, remember Feit? It was ridiculous. It was scary. Those guys couldn't answer his questions. Our screening process at Louisville was ridiculous. That guy had dialed it in. He had sheets upon sheets he would give us. He had it figured out. For whatever reason, that was what he loved. And then then you have different things like the block zero stuff. We had certain coaches that gravitated towards that. Then you have your high. You have to figure out what's gonna separate you. And I've always said, like, everybody's like, oh, House, you're this, you're that. You know what I'm really an expert at? Am I really an expert at Olympic lifting, powerlifting, or all the different? I would classify myself, without patting myself on the back, as a very strong X's and O program designer. And based off of publications and critiques around the world, I guess there's some credibility to that. But you want to know what I'm really an expert at? I'm an expert of training large groups of athletes in a very structured and contained environment with a lot of fun and enthusiasm and a lot of SHIT talking. That's what I'm an expert at. All the other things is just a summation of everything I've learned. Second, I think I'm a really good program designer and have a good combination of passion and having some excitement to the day. I don't get overly hyped. I don't get too down. I can drop an F-bomb, although those days are kind of over. I think there's a better way to communicate with athletes. But I've also learned I never get too high and I never get too low when it comes to wins and losses, man, because it's all waves. You run that wave for a championship. In sports, it's hard. Very few places are Alabama, Ohio State, and schools like that, and even them, they've gone through their lulls, right? When whoever replaces Nick Saban, man, good luck. Because if you don't win 10 your first year, they might boot you. Man, the one, Bo Pelini or one of the Pelini brothers got fired at Nebraska for winning 9 games 3 years in a row. Bet you they wish they had him now. It all cyclical, but then if you get on a good run, look at the Patriots. Yeah, was it Tom Brady? Yeah, I'm sure it had something to do with it, but it also had to do with 10 dudes opted out on defense. No one talks about that. Some of their best players opted out, but it came to an end, right? And you rebuild. That's no different than what we have to do when you go through times of, hardship. You got to test your resiliency. Can you rise up and answer the questions of why did this occur and what have I learned in the next step? And how do I process that? Do you have the right people behind you that you can call and have built enough relationship, whether it's been good, bad, or indifferent, but you've grown together that somebody will tell you the truth? Because sometimes you want to hear them tell you the truth, but they'll be like, damn, does he really want me to tell you that? And you would hope that that you would want to hear it, right? And you would want to believe that, you know what? He's not calling me not for me to tell him. So there's a lot of things, these are a lot of lessons that, as I thought they were lessons of a veteran strength coach, they're lessons of a life coach. And that's the real interesting component of what we do. Pat Ivey, I don't know how many of you guys follow the CSCCa, and I don't know how many were there or not. But Pat Ivey's discussion on diversity and inclusion, he made some really, really good points. And he said, which really resonated with me, was who better than a strength and conditioning coach to talk about diversity and inclusion? With all the different individuals and socioeconomic status and ethnicities and color of skin that we see roll through a weight room, who better than us? Think about that. Because when he said it, I was like, hey, work with all, if you're an all sport or an Olympic sport nowadays, who better than us to be at the forefront, to lead some of that? And again, in that specific subject matter, you gotta have broad shoulders in those discussions. That's a tough one. And it's an interesting growth. But hey, we'll wrap it up here. I knew I'd get carried away. Again, we always thank you guys. This is being recorded. James, our super huge producer, I think within 1 or 2 days, James has it uploaded on YouTube and the Dynamic site. And next month, we've already talked about a discussion topic that we were both excited about. We'll hold that off until we get that finally approved. And I hope I didn't bore y'all. I will be speaking on a similar topic at the NSCA in June. It will be uploaded by Friday. Thanks, James. And then what I will tell you is it'll be a different audience at the NSCA. So I will change a little bit because I had numerous cards. I thought what I discussed at the CSCA really fit that crowd, and I can go a little bit different direction. So similar concept with a little slightly different direction at the NSCA. And if any of you have any feedback when it comes to lessons that you think is something that I can help get out there, send it along, because I have no filter when it comes to saying stuff out loud. So again, on behalf of our ownership and my beautiful pink Dynamic sweatshirt that I wear proudly and vibrantly, because I have such a big smile and I'm such a very happy guy 24 hours a day. We want to thank you for Kurt and Tammy, our owners, James, the entire staff at Dynamic. Until next month, words win. Any questions? I'll stay on a little bit. Anybody got anything outside of the stuff we just talked about? Going once, going twice. No one's coming off mute.
Hey, Coach, real quick.
What you got?
We're talking about some of the books that you said that were great reads. Earlier you were going over them, but you were kind of freezing in and out. Could you go over those books again? I know one of them was the one talking about working a miserable job.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see something. Can I, on this chat thing, can I upload a... Does anybody know on Zoom if I can No?
If you type it in the chat, Coach, it'll pop up for everybody to see it.
But what if you want to, can I put a picture in there? Oh, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. James, can you allow me to screen share? Can I screen share? I'll put a picture of the books up and you guys can screenshot. How's that? Hold on a sec. I'm going to go to screen share. Nope, I'm disabled participant screening. Let's see. Oh, now I can do it. Hold on a sec. So I go to desktop, share, and then we're going to go here. See all my screenshots from today. I was on a Zoom lecture. Let's see if I got it in here. Do I not? Here it is. Coach, you got it?
Sir, I got it.
All right. So if I'm ranking these in, I don't have any particular order. I should say, I mean, obviously the most common is the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And I think Mark Watts and a couple other people will agree. I think I got most of the strength coach world on Lenciani because I brought him up in like 1999 or 2000 and something on a Dave Tate podcast. Death by meeting to me is number one. The 3 big questions of a frantic family is better than expected. 3 signs of a miserable job was ridiculously good. All the other ones, Silos, Politics, and Turf Wars is an interesting read. As we know, we have a lot of, as strength coaches, we do have some types of conflicts with other group members in different departments in an athletic department. The Motive was very good. That was his latest one. I like that one a lot. And then all the other ones just kind of fit in the middle, but I would very much recommend that this is a, and here's why I think these are excellent books for strength coaches, because the first half of the books are written in a fable story. So you're reading a story and you actually get into the characters. And then the second half is more textbook related. But this will get you started for sure.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah. So I mean, those, I can't say enough about those guys, those books. Lenciani has really figured out a very simple way to get his point across. And then he dives a little deeper and gives you the tools you need to apply that especially in our setting. But Death by Meeting really woke my eyes up, because I came through that football coach mentality, being a college football player of meet, over meet. And man, that really just put us into play. And we really killed it when I oversaw all the sports at Arizona State. That Death by Meeting protocols that we instituted helped me so much when it came to talking with the other coaches outside of football and some of the administrators for the other sports, being aware of what was going on with the entire athletic department's teams was a huge beneficial in the way we did our meeting process. Okay, well, if that's it, we will see you all next month. Thanks again, and we truly appreciate you taking the time out tonight.
Thanks, Coach. Have a good night.
Hey, congrats again, Coach Sharp.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
We'll see you.
All right.